YouTube. So this is very interesting. Alexander the Great read about himself in the book of Daniel, according to Josephus, who is considered a highly reputable historian. However, the official story is that the book of Daniel was written after the events of the book of Maccabees, because that's how the secular historians who hate the Bible have to spin everything. They can't admit that the Bible is a historical document, despite naming many historical tribes who no longer exist, even at the time of the Second Temple, which is when they think the Bible was actually written, naming many historical events from very ancient history. I mean, much of the Bible, the events in the book of Genesis, these events cover a time period from like 2,000 years before Christ. That's the day of Abraham. And it's very accurate. So the Bible is the greatest historical text to have survived all the book burnings and genocides and re-education programs. Nothing has survived from these times except for the Bible. Very little, yeah, archaeological evidence here and there, but you can't put the pieces together with just little excavations here and there. The Bible, however, puts it all into perspective. So, Alexander the Great read about himself in the book of Daniel, according to Josephus. A story from Josephus's writings confirms that Daniel's prophecies were received centuries before Alexander the Great conquered the world. This is important because the Greeks, the Macedonian Empire, which Alexander was a part of, he was the Macedonian, the Chittim. You can read about this in First Maccabees chapter 1. Alexander the Great of Chittim, which is Cyprus, Macedonia. He conquered Greece, he conquered Persia, he conquered the world, and then he got sick and he died, and he left his kingdom to four princes who were raised with him from his youth. And one of these princes was Antiochus. And a few generations later, Antiochus Epiphanes is trying to exterminate Judaism, trying to burn all the libraries of holy books, just trying to completely destroy everything connected to the Bible. And he fails. However, much of the literature was destroyed, much of it was lost, and that which survived had to be pieced back together by the scribes, who had basically had to hide underground. I mean, they really were trying to exterminate Judaism off the face of the planet. And this is why they say, oh, the book of Daniel is about events that happened after the books of Maccabees. They say that Daniel didn't prophesy the rise of the Greek Empire, that Daniel was written after the rise of the Greek Empire as a way of discrediting it. However, the book of Daniel says that the Messiah will be executed and then the temple and the city of Jerusalem will be destroyed. The sanctuary, which always refers to the house of God, the sanctuary in the days of Moses was the tent, the tabernacle that they carried God around in the Ark of the Covenant. And so that's the sanctuary up until Solomon's temple, when the sanctuary became that piece of land. God said, my name, my eyes, and my heart will be here forever. 1 Kings chapter 9. So the sanctuary is the house of God, and the city is Jerusalem. And these were both destroyed by the Romans centuries before the book of Daniel was written, centuries after the book of Daniel was written, even according to secular historians. 70 AD, the temple is destroyed again, the city is destroyed again by the Romans. While the secular historians say that the book of Daniel was written around 150 before Christ. Unless you believe the actual book, then it was written about 500 to 600 before Christ. Although Alexander the Great conquered Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, and surrounding countries, modern historians have little to say of him visiting the Holy Land. Yet ancient history says that he had a most remarkable encounter there, not only visiting the temple in Jerusalem, but also making a sacrifice to the God of Israel. Most modern historians dismiss the story, but one wonders just why they do it. Could it be that they have to admit that there is a God of history who controls the course of nations? The noted first century Jewish historian Josephus records the king's visit to Jerusalem and a meeting between Alexander and the high priest Jaddua. 332 BC, Alexander besieged and defeated the coastal cities of Tyre and Gaza in his march toward Egypt. During his campaign, he turned toward Jerusalem. So let's just get to the Alexander did the unexpected. He approached the high priest and members of the procession and greeted them. When asked by one of his generals why he welcomed the group, he replied, I did not adore him, but that God who has honored him with his high priesthood. For I saw this very person in a dream in this very habit and garment when I was at Dios in Macedonia, who, when I was considering with myself how I might obtain the dominion of Asia, exhorted me to make no delay, but boldly to pass over the sea Anyway, so Josephus records that Alexander then accompanied the priest into Jerusalem and the temple, where he offered sacrifice to God according to the high priest's directions, and magnificently treated both the priest and the high priest and the priests. Alexander's visit was capped by a briefing from the Book of Daniel, written several centuries earlier, which foretold the rise and conquests not of Alexander but of the Greeks. And when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was the person intended, and as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present. Many scholars regard Josephus as a reputable historian on the same footing as other ancient authorities such as Tacitus. Why then is this remarkable record of Alexander's visit to Jerusalem so casually dismissed as a fabrication? Many simply cannot accept that the book of Daniel, which foretold Alexander's conquest of the Persian Empire several centuries before the Macedonian king was born, could have been divinely inspired. So rather than accept Daniel's book as a work inspired by God through the Jewish prophet in Babylon during the 6th century before Christ, they argue that it must have been written long after Alexander lived and died. They say the book of Daniel, or at least parts of the book of Daniel, were written after the destruction of the Macedonians to Israel. You can read about this destruction in the books of Maccabees. So they say that after the events in Maccabees, that's when these chapters were added into the book of Daniel. That's just not true. So let's see what the book of Daniel has to say. So we get to Daniel chapter 2. Nebuchadnezzar has his dream, and nobody can interpret it. So he says, basically, I'm going to kill all the wise men. Daniel prays, and Daniel receives a vision from God. And okay, so this was his dream. You saw a great image. The great image whose brightness was excellent stood before you, and the form was terrible. And the image's head was of fine gold. This is the Babylonian Empire. His breast and arms of silver. This is the Medo-Persian Empire. His belly and his thighs of brass. This is the Greek Empire. His legs of iron. This is the Roman Empire. His feet part of iron and part of clay. This is an offshoot of the Roman Empire, or the Roman Empire itself. You saw till a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon the feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. The stone that was cut without hands, this is Jesus. This is the Messianic kingdom. See, the Muslims do not understand what the Messiah is. They can say Jesus is the Messiah all they want to, but when they deny his divinity, when they deny his kingdom, they're not saying he's the Messiah. They're saying he's a very, very respected prophet, and they're pretending that Muhammad is his successor. The iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold were broken to pieces together and became like chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, and no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Christ will reign over the entire planet. So he interprets the dream. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, and strength and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven has he given into your hand, and he has made you a ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. After you shall arise another kingdom inferior to you, which is the Persians, and a third kingdom of brass, which is the Greeks, which shall bear rule over the whole earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things, and as iron that breaks all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. The Roman Empire was everywhere. I mean, they even found Roman swords in the Americas. Like, they literally found a Roman sword rusted out, oxidized in a sea off the coast of America. They found Roman money off the coast of the United States. So Rome was everywhere. And whereas you saw the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay, a part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it the strength of iron. So divided kingdom. So you're talking about the Byzantine Empire and the Roman Empire? Possibly. But I think basically the entire world at this point is an offshoot of Rome. From Islam, the United States, Russia, everything comes from Rome, really. All roads lead to Rome. So Rome is this fourth kingdom. The Vatican, you know, Islam was basically a Gnostic heresy, and the Romans basically created many heresies of Christianity, of everything really. I mean, Rome really has. If you closely study Rome, you can see literally all roads lead to Rome. So you saw the feet and toes, part of potter's clay, part of iron. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of iron. For as much as you saw the iron mixed with the clay, and the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And then you saw the and whereas you saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave, they shall not stick one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So we see this, like all the races have been mixed. United States, Islam, Catholics, like the fourth kingdom, all the races of men are mixed together. There's this globalized homogeny, but we're not really mixed. We're just, our seeds are mixing, but we're not united. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. And as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, the gold, the great God has made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. So, Nebuchadnezzar misunderstands this dream apparently because he ends up building a giant image of gold and he tells everybody to worship it. And actually, this is when Jesus is seen. So Daniel's three friends refuse to bow down to the golden image, and he throws them into the fire, and Jesus reveals himself. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did we not cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? And they answered, True, O king. And he said, Lo, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. So, Muslims, how are you going to explain this? Daniel is before Jesus. So the Son of God is something that was known in the Old Testament, not just the New Testament. Muslims, Jews, how are you going to explain this one? So, um, let's see. So I think he has another dream, but I don't think this one really applies to what I'm. Yeah, this one's a little. I mean, this is an important dream, the 7 years, but this one isn't about what I'm trying to talk about here. So, nor this chapter, but this is the chapter where the Persian Empire conquers Babylon, and Daniel is so highly respected by the Persians that they basically take him along to Persia. They take him to Shushan the palace. So, Daniel, I mean, we would know more about this if it wasn't for the Macedonian Empire destroying everything. We know that the Book of Esther, we know that there are artifacts in Persia that confirm that the Book of Esther was real. There was I'm not sure if it says he was Jewish, but there was a man named Mordecai or something Morduku, something like that, and he was in the king's court of Xerxes. That's an archaeological fact. Mordecai, highly respected by the Persian Empire. But of course, when the Macedonian Empire took over Persia and Babylon, they destroyed everything they could. So it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, and Daniel was at the highest. I think this is where they try to burn him alive. So I wanted to get to chapter 7, I think. So Daniel sees a vision, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. And I think these four beasts are the four kingdoms that he saw. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. This is like a griffin. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and was made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given unto it. So I'm assuming that one's Babylon. And behold, a second beast, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. They said unto it, Arise and devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, a third, another like a leopard. Okay, so anyway, the fourth beast, the fourth kingdom, this is Rome. It had great iron teeth that devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns, 7 heads and 10 horns, if you remember that from the book of Revelation. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Anyway, so basically the Roman Empire, the fourth kingdom, it's going to destroy the world. It's going to speak great blasphemies against God. I mean, Rome killed Jesus. Rome destroyed the second temple. Rome destroyed Jerusalem. Rome killed so many Christians. Rome created a heretical version of Christianity known as Roman Catholicism. Rome is hostile to the law of Moses, even though they claim to be Christians. I mean, Rome is wicked. And I believe what the Jews think about Rome, which is that Rome is a connection to Edom, that Rome is Esau. Hadrian was apparently an Edomite. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. This is the Father, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was like a fiery flame, and the wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I beheld then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld till the beast was slain, and the body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, which is what Jesus refers to himself constantly. This is the Christ. The Son of Man came with the clouds. Behold, he comes with clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, the Father, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and language should serve him. And the word serve here in Hebrew, it also means worship. So everyone's going to serve/worship the Son of Man, the Messiah. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed. So, yeah. So read the book of Daniel. It's really good stuff. It's definitely historically accurate. Let me just read you one more little thing. Oh, here's one about Greece. This one's about Greece. Um, So Daniel's in Shushan in chapter 8, which is the kingdom of Persia, the capital. And he sees a goat, and the goat's conquering the earth. And the goat grew very great. And what did it say about Greece? Yeah. Okay. The ram which you saw having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, which is Alexander the Great. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. So these are the four kingdoms that arise out of Alexander the Great when he dies, and you can read about this in Maccabees, First Maccabees chapter 1. In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, which seems to imply that he's powerful through witches, through demons rather. He shall destroy wonderfully and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy he shall cause craft, which is like deception, to prosper in his hand. He shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. All right, so let's just Daniel 9:26, and I think I'll end it here. So this is probably one of the most important prophecies in the entire Bible. After 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. The word cut off means executed. You can read about this, the word cut off in the Bible. 1 Kings chapter 18, Jezebel is executing, cutting off the prophets of Yahweh. Genesis 9:11, God promises to no longer cut off all flesh from the earth with a flood. I think it was Exodus 9:20 something, I think it was. Moses tells Pharaoh, if you don't let my people go, God will cut you off. So Messiah will be executed, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The sanctuary is Solomon's temple, the city is Jerusalem. And the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end of the war desolations are determined. These are the words of Gabriel speaking to Daniel. So Gabriel told Daniel the Messiah will be executed. The temple will be destroyed again. The city will be destroyed again. The city and the temple hadn't even been rebuilt yet, and there's already a prophecy that they're going to be destroyed again. So keep this all in perspective, Muslims. Keep this in perspective, Jews. This prophecy, this is a prophecy centuries before Christ. The Messiah will be executed. The temple will be destroyed. The city will be destroyed again. Explain this away. Explain it. Tell me how the Bible's corrupt. Tell me how we can't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Jews, tell me how Jesus is not the Messiah because he was executed. Muslims, tell me how the Old Testament prophecies are inaccurate. Was Gabriel lying? Tell me. I want you guys to give me your best explanation for this prophecy. Because the Jews say that Jesus can't be the Messiah because he was killed. And the Muslims say Jesus was never crucified. But right here, Gabriel himself is telling Daniel the Messiah was executed. Speak.